Welcome to African Confessions. I am your host. My name is Brother Nashi, and I am so glad that you are here. So, on this channel, we are trying to create a safe space for Africans to share their stories, their struggles, and we believe that our experiences are worth sharing and that our voices deserve to be heard. So here is the confession that I have for you today. The message reads like this. Good morning, Brother Nashi. Please post for me. So I am out of jail. I am ashamed to admit that I often feel like I was robbed of my childhood. Whilst my friends were in school, learning and playing, I was out in the fields, tending to my grandfather's cattle, and I never knew my parents, unfortunately, but my grandfather did his best to raise me, but it was such a hard life. I resented the fact that I had to work so hard day in and day out, whilst others got to have a carefree childhood. I felt like I was missing out on so much. But now that I look back, I realize that those long hours in the fields taught me a lot of lessons about hard work, responsibility, and perseverance. I may not have had the same opportunities as others, but I have come to understand that my experiences shaped me into the person that I am today. I am proud of what I have accomplished in life, and I am grateful for the strength and the resilience that I developed in those early years. I just wish I could have had the chance to experience a normal childhood with parents to love and support me, but I know that life doesn't always work out as we plan. I remember when I was still back home in Cape Town, it was really hard. It was always cold. The cold wind would bite through my thin clothes and I would shiver with chill, and there was no one who could even bother to buy me some clothes, even though my grandfather did his best. But he was struggling to make ends meet, and there was never enough money for him to buy me some clothes that were warm. All that I could do was to wrap myself in a thin blanket, trying to find some scraps of clothes to wrap around my hands, because I could not even afford to buy some clothes. And this was really hard because each and every morning I had to wake up so that I can go and I would be heading the cattle. The loneliness was quite worse. I felt like no one even cared for me, like I was just an invisible. I would see other kids bundled up in their warm clothes, laughing and playing in the cold, and I would feel a pang of jealousy. Why couldn't I have that too in my life? Why couldn't I have someone to take care of me, to keep me warm and safe? But then something changed. A friend who was a few years older than me came to visit from Johannesburg. He was flashy, confident, and seemed to have the world at his feet. He told me stories, a lot of those stories, about the city of the bright lights, the bustling streets, and the endless opportunities that could be found in that city. He had painted a picture of a life that was very different from the life that I had known all my life, a life that was full of freedom and adventure, and I was really tempted. I was tired of all of these hardships, the loneliness and the struggles. I wanted more and more. So when my friend asked me to come with him to Johannesburg, I hesitated for a moment, and then I made that impulsive decision to leave. I packed a small bag, said goodbye to no one, and ran away from my grandparents' farm. I know it was a selfish decision, but I could not help myself because I felt trapped and I needed to escape. I needed to see the grass, if indeed the grass was greener on the other side. And so I left with nothing but a few clothes and a sense of determination. We arrived in Johannesburg, and my friend showed me the city's bright lights and the bustling streets. At first, it was quite overwhelming, but it was really nice. I felt like I had finally found the freedom and adventure that I had been craving for. But as the days turned into weeks, reality began to set in. My friend's life was not as glamorous as he had made it out to be. He was struggling to make ends meet, and I was stuck in a small apartment with no job at all. I realized that I had made a big mistake, that I had traded one set of problems for another. But I was too proud to admit it, too scared to go back to the farm and face my grandparents' disappointment. So I did what many young people will do in that situation. I turned to the streets, and then I started hustling, doing your odd jobs and selling things on the corner just to make a living. It was hard, but it was also a learning experience. I learned how to survive, how to be resourceful, and how to rely on myself. And I learned that the grass is not always greener on the other side. But sometimes it is necessary to take a leap of faith to find out. As I found myself navigating the streets of Johannesburg, I noticed something that caught my attention. Pastors with churches seemed to be living very comfortable lives, driving your nice cars and wearing fancy suits. They appeared to be respected and admired by their congregation, and their churches seemed to be thriving. I could not help but wonder, how were they doing all of these things? I had always been skeptical of religion, but I could not deny the fact that these pastors were making a good living from it. And then a thought struck me, why not start my own church? I had always been charismatic and persuasive, and I knew how to work a crowd. I figured if those other pastors could do it, why could I not do it? So I started really small, renting a tiny hall and spreading the word about my new church. At first, it was really tough, but I wanted to succeed. I used my hustling skills to promote my church, and slowly but surely, people started to show up. And at that time, when people were showing up, I didn't know what to do next. I was like a dog who had chased a car, and now that I had caught up with this car, I didn't know what to do with the car, to bite it, to get into the car, or to do what. So I just stood there confused. That was when this other man approached me. This man then told me that he was from Zim and he had been sent. When he said that he had been sent, I automatically thought that this man, he had been sent by God, because he kept on saying that he who has sent me has told me that I am supposed to assist you with A, B, C, he who has sent me, until finally, after he had given me a big bag that was filled with money. When I took that money, when I counted it, it was quite a huge sum of money. And he said that, so you think that a university lecturer can donate so much money to you? Did you count the money? And I said, yes, I counted the money. And he said, how much was the money? And I told him that it was somewhere around 84,000 rands. And he said, oh, so you think that a university lecturer will have so much money lying around, but he who has sent me to you, he is the owner of everything that you see. As he was pointing at the cars, at people that were walking around. So I thought that maybe it was God. But as my church grew, so did my ego. I started to believe in my own hype, and because now I had this financial backing, I thought that this was the plan that God had laid out for me. Then, Brother Nashi, what happened was that when I got married, this man, he then said that you would be going with me on my honeymoon with my wife, and he had chosen a wife for me, and he had chosen a woman for me whom he said that she was a virgin, who had never slept with a man before. And how he had known about this, I don't even know. But at that university where he is the lecturer, he said that he had carefully selected amongst the Christians, like the young Christian women that were coming to that university, and he had picked them up until he had found the one who had never slept with a man before. For he wanted me to have a woman who would never, because he wanted me to have a woman who had never slept with a man before. I was really happy, but at the same time, I was really scared because of the other things that I had seen in his office. Because one day when I had gone to that university. Apologies, I cannot tell you the name of that university because the man, he is still there. When I went there just to pay him a visit, so he had rushed out because there were some men, some white men that he had came to see him, but they are part of their secret society. So when he left me in his office, I then stumbled upon an ancient text that spoke of dark forces and supernatural powers, and it promised that with the right rituals and incantations, I could step into the dark side and unlock abilities beyond my wildest dreams. So after I had gotten married, this man, he promised me and my wife that we were going to have a vacation of our lifetime. So we went, but my wife did not know that this man, he was joining us up and he was going to be with us on that same vacation. When we landed in that country, this man, the following day, that was when he also landed in that same country. Then he knew where me and my wife will be staying. So on the first night when we arrived, my wife wanted us to do the deed, but unfortunately the man had told me that I was not supposed to do anything. I was supposed to wait for him. Little did I know that he was the one who was supposed to sleep with my wife before I would have slept with my wife. So that day when my wife tried to sleep with me, I refused and I lied to her that I had a severe headache. Then the following day when he was in that country, he then gave me some items that I was supposed to place underneath the bed. So I had lied to my wife that I just wanted to see what was taking place at the casino. My wife, her being a strong Christian, she refused. So I met with him in that same casino and he gave me some items, and these items that he gave to me, they were like little idols, like your little monkeys that he gave me, and he said that I was supposed to place them underneath the bed. So I returned back and then I placed them underneath the bed. My wife fell fast asleep and I was also feeling really dizzy. Then I had a knock on the door. I struggled and I went and I opened the door. Then I saw that it was that same university lecturer who had been sponsoring my church. And then he told me that he was here for the initiation ceremony. And if I was going to agree, then I was going to become a multi-millionaire. So I then agreed, and this man, he then started sleeping with my wife. Oh yes, this man, he totally like slept with my wife whilst I was watching, but I had no control over my body at that time. I could only move my eyes after he had started touching my wife and starting to sleep with my wife. Yes, I cried. I just felt that there were tears that were falling down my face as I was thinking that this man, he is now sleeping with my wife. So what is the meaning of all of these things? What does it mean? What is going to happen in the future? Is this man, will this man continue sleeping with my wife? After he was done, this man, I saw him, he got up, then he walked to his room. When he came back, mind you, these things, when he was doing it, when he left the room, he was completely naked. And when he came back, he was no longer naked. He was wearing this other garment, a very black garment and a black hat on top. And then he started to wipe my wife's private parts. After that, he then started to rub the blood that had came out of my wife's private part on my private part. Then he left. After he had left, that was when I regained my strength, and my wife woke up. And when she woke up, she smiled at me and she looked at my manhood and she thought that I was the one who had broken her virginity. Until the day that she passed away, my wife did not even realize that I actually sacrificed her to this society that helped me to be where I am right now. So in my church, even if it means that people do not give me like their tithe in time, I do not even worry, because each and every month there is money that is given to me, and I have been taught. Do you know that most of the rich people that are in these secret societies, they do not take their children to the same schools that we go to? I was taken to another school, the school of money, where you are taught the importance of money, where you are taught how money is truly made. So right now, financially, I am in a position where I am okay. After we had performed all of these rituals, I was then told that it was time for me to marry another wife. Unfortunately, and the most unfortunate part is that my second wife, she was going to carry at least 3 pregnancies, and she won't be able to hold her babies in her arms after she would have given birth to those babies. So she was going to carry them for 9 months, then they will come out as stillborn babies. I do not want to say a lot of stuff about that because I am scared of exposing myself if I give you a lot of details. This is my own story, my brother. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our brother right there. Strange things do happen in this world. Just imagine you are given money, but on your wedding day, when you go on your honeymoon, then the man who would have gotten you into the society has to sleep with your wife. Yo,